Hi, my name is Kelsea Koenreich, and I am a strategic business coach and a thought partner for mom CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs. And I'm so excited to share a conversation with Pearl.
Hey everybody, it's Pearl Sharenza, and I am back from Women Successful Living with another conversation with Pearl today. And I am so excited to bring our special guest on. You guys are going to love her, especially our moms that are entrepreneurs and or professionals. This is going to be a fun segment for you. And as a young adult, Kelsea Koenreich was on a path of self-destruction, culminating in multiple arrests. Through intentional self awareness and change, she completely transformed her trajectory. Today, as a motivational speaker on shame, resilience, and professional balance, Kelsea is also a thriving business owner and the author of Below the Surface, a confidence building framework to reach your goals without overwhelm. Her insights derived from her unique journey have been highlighted on numerous television shows and podcasts. Kelsea is passionate about helping professionals navigate the complexities of modern leadership and find balance amidst chaos. And who doesn't want balance amidst chaos, right? So welcome to the show, Kelsea. So excited to have you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love these kind of conversations.
Yeah. So let's get right into it because, in your bio, we talk about what you've gone through, with the multiple arrests and things like that. So take us back to what was life like before you started on this journey you're on today?
Yeah, it was a wild one for sure. And now it's wild in different ways as a mom of three little kids. But yeah, I was just, I think a lot of women can relate with struggling with self-worth and self-compassion and, shame being such a deep, dark hole that we sometimes just keep digging into and staying into. And that's where I was for about 10 years of my life. So I was born and raised in Texas and, had a bit of a rough start, rocky childhood. Parents split up when I was little, nothing that's out of the norm, but just I think that I internalized a lot of it. And so I spent 10 years on this self-destructive path. And I think I was really just searching for a sense of belonging. I didn't know who I was. I didn't love myself or know how to love myself. And so I found myself in a lot of scary situations and, doing a lot of drugs, drinking a lot. The party scene was where I found my belonging. And so I stayed there for quite a long period of time, even knowing that it wasn't a great choice and I wasn't making choices that made me feel good. But I think when you don't care about yourself, you continue to make those choices because you don't know how to make any different choices. So yeah, it was a long path and I'm grateful for it at this point. I was arrested 3 times and the third time was the charm. That was my rock bottom. That was, I woke up in the medical unit at Sarasota County Jail here in Florida. And there was this dirty, disgusting, foggy, rusted mirror. And I remember getting up. I wore contacts at the time and they were foggy from crying and like looking at myself. And it was like that moment of really seeing yourself for the first time. And I think that was the moment that I took accountability. That was the moment that I took ownership, which I believe is like our source of power. And I was like, if I continue down this path, I'm not going to live. And do I want to live? Was the question. And I chose yes, I do want to live. And so I knew that with that choice, I was going to have to change everything. And so I did. I had to change everything. And it was hard, but that was just such a powerful moment. And I'm so grateful that I made that choice in that moment because I think a lot of people in my situation maybe wouldn't have.
Wow, there's so much there. I mean, so those that are listening, I take lots of notes while I have guests on because there's always so many amazing nuggets that are so important to recap on. And this is no different. And if you're watching, if you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing. But let's talk about some of the things you talk about. Like it's so important, and these are things that I coach on as well, is knowing our self-worth, right? Knowing
Mhm.
that our self-compassion, self-worth is so, so important because we are with ourselves 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And when women, and I'm coaching women, we talk about, how much do you love yourself? Like what's happening in your world right now? And I make them do the work. And if you're listening, we've done this sometimes here with guests as well. So we talk about, we have to start with what brings you joy, like what makes you happy. Let's tap into some of that, because if you feel like you're kind of lost and not where to start at, let's sort of find something that brings you joy so that you can start feeling that love for yourself again. Like, and if, because I feel like when we smile and we do those things that bring us joy, it's very, that hug for ourselves is what I like to say. And so finding that self-worth and self-compassion is so, so powerful. And so let's talk about that for a second, because like you were saying, it took 3 times. The third time was the charm, I'm going to quote you as saying, I want the listeners and those that are watching, like, think about this. Your life is spiraling out of control right now. Maybe you're going through some things that are so challenging. Maybe you're like me, you lost your child, 18 months ago, and you're grieving the worst thing in your life that you could go through. Or maybe you're going through a divorce and you never thought that would happen, or something in your life is changing. Maybe there's boundaries you have to put around very difficult relationships that are close to you. Maybe it's a family member that you really care about, or a friendship. And so you just feel sort of like, oh my gosh, like you were saying, you're going in this deep hole, like this rabbit hole is just sucking you in. And you get up and you look in this mirror. And I love how you painted the picture for us too, because I wear contacts and I know when I forget to take them out and I'm crying or I just sleeping, they're like so foggy, right? And so I want you, the listener, to think about, like, if this resonates with you and this is you and you're looking in the mirror right now, like, what are you saying to yourself? What is it that you are looking to change, and how do you make that change? And so I would love to know, Kelsey, like when you stood in front of that mirror, like I could just picture you getting off this uncomfortable bed or cement bed, whatever that is. We have different visions in our head, and you're standing in front of that mirror. I when you said that, it reminded me of a friend of mine that's here locally, Steve Hopper, and he talks about when he was in jail, he got to jail as a teenager, and how he woke up and he was kneeling on a cement floor and he saw a light coming up through the cement floor. Like, and that picture that you painted of standing in front of that mirror sort of brought me back to his picture too. All of us have that moment. Your moment happened to be that you were in jail. So when you're standing in front of that mirror, like, walk us through, like, what were some of the feelings you were feeling, and what were some of the actions that you had to start taking to bring you to where you are today?
Yeah. I mean, I would say the thing that I felt the most was shame. It was my third time being back there. It was my second DUI. I had also gotten a felony drug charge. There was a lot of shame. And with that, there was still this disconnect and like internal knowing of there was something more and there was something better. And because I was in the medical unit because I had told them that I was going to take my own life. And in that cell with me were 2 women that were there for murder. Another was withdrawing from drugs. And it was like this full body awareness and knowing, like, this is not the path that I'm supposed to be on. And it wasn't about judgment towards them. It was more so that just knowing that there was something more for me. And I had never felt that before. I didn't know what the more was. I definitely couldn't tell you that I would be here as a millionaire mom of 3 with businesses and married to my best friend. Like, I could never have predicted that. But it was just some sort of something that was like, you need to make the choice to live because there is something more. And so with that, I think immediately, there was a lot of shame, and there was the reality that I was going to have to live differently, which meant changing everything at that time. I'd been in the hospitality industry for a long time, which is just a breeding ground for drug abuse and all the things that I was doing, because it was very normalized then. And I knew that I was going to have to change. I was going to have to lose all my friends. That was like the thing that was so scary to me, is you build your identity, right? And I had found my belonging. I had built an identity in being the party girl, being the fun girl, I was, everybody knew me. And who am I without that? And so I remember when I got out of jail, sitting on my bed and crying and knowing that there was like the real pressure of like facing real jail time and all of those things, but the compounding pressure of like, holy shit, do, I have to be a different person, a completely different person. Like, what does that even look like? Where do I even start? And so where I started to ask for help. I found, I went to AA, I went to NA, I stopped drinking. I found a program that I voluntarily put myself into, which is a second chance program here in Florida called Drug Court. And it was incredible. It required that I stay sober, and that's what I needed. And I just surrounded myself with different people that were not using and, not living the way that I was living. And I just continued to ask for help. And I went to a therapist. I went through life coaching. I found out why I was making the decisions that I was making and built a greater understanding of those things. And then the final piece for me was after I had found that like mental clarity, and after I had started to learn that I could be somebody different and saw the possibility and the opportunity there, then I found my health and fell in love with fitness. And that was really the start of my entrepreneurial journey, actually. So it was just putting one foot in front of the other, but a lot of it was just like, I, I deeply despise the term self-made because none of us are. And everything that I am and everything that I've built is because somebody helped me.
I love it, what you said about the self-made, because it's so true. We can't, some people can, and great. I'm so proud of you, can figure things out on our own. But most of us, we need that guidance. I mean, it starts with our parents, right? It starts with having that, those parents, and hopefully, they've got some tools to help them, and they're not perfect in that situation. And it starts there because they're helping us learn to walk, they're helping us learn to talk, all those things. So we come in this world with getting help, right? And it's so
Yeah.
oftentimes we're afraid to ask for help. We're afraid to be like, I need a therapist, or I need to talk to a life coach, or like even in health and fitness. I mean, I went on a journey years ago to lose over almost 80 pounds because I was not healthy. I needed to make
Mhm.
changes because I had, a complete hysterectomy at a very young age. So that brought all kinds of stuff that nobody talked to me about. I had to figure this stuff out on my own. I was lost. And when I got help, wow, my life changed. Right. And so I love that you talk about, you have to ask for help, but I also, go back to your feelings that you shared, and thank you for being vulnerable and sharing them with us about, the disconnect and the shame, but knowing that there's more, right? We have to, sometimes I feel like we get in this spiral of things are so, like when I lost my son, I could have easily just stayed in my bed all day long and just been in grief. And people would have been like, that's okay. It's expected. For me, I knew in my heart of who I was before we lost Matthew. And they talk oftentimes about, who you were before and after. And I feel like there's a lot to that, but I also feel like there's a very blended combination, because who I was before, that tragic loss of Matt, was somebody who had figured out Pearl is important, and Pearl's name, as much as, if people knew me when I was younger, I hated my name, Kelsey. I would come home crying, Mom, can I please change my name? Because I was short. My last name was Knapp.
Oh,
So I was called Minnie Pearl Harbor, all these terrible things. And today it's like I embrace my name. When I finally figured out the love of my name and the love of me, like finding my self-worth and, my self-compassion for me, and understanding that I had to show up and say yes to me first before I could show up for my family, my career, or what the things that I want to accomplish. That was such an awakening. And so Matt saw me do that. So it's like, for me, it was like, I would not be honoring the memory of what he saw me become. And I feel him around me all the time. So I know he'd be kicking me my butt if I wasn't continuing that path. And then on top of that, we have another amazing son, Nate, who is just as amazing as Matthew was, who, this year is engaged and everything. So I wouldn't be able to enjoy those things. And knowing that there's more. Yes, this is such a tragedy. And if you're listening, whatever it is you're going through, it sounds and feels so heavy right now. And just know that there's still more. Like, I always feel like the lessons and the things we go to are always to prepare us for the bounce forward, to how we're going to move forward in our life, and what those lessons are to take with us. And I love to, one of the things you talk about, the choice to change. Like, it's a choice. We have to make that choice to make changes in our life, and they can be so hard, like what you said, so hard. I have friends that I support. I watched Matt go through some challenges with addiction to alcohol. So when you were saying that, I was like, I remember, talking to him in front. You got to change your friends. You can't hang out there. You can't work there. Those are areas. And I have a cousin, and she's listening to me right now. I love her daughter dearly, and I've said to her, you need to change where you're working, because, like you said, some of those things are bred in that hospitality area. So changing your friends and who you hang out with. And if you're listening, there's a lot to be said to that, because I remember when I was on my health journey, I had somebody say to me, they gave me an article, and I don't remember who did the article, but they shared an article with me that talked about, you are the sum of who you hang out with. Because if you're hanging out with people who are making unhealthy choices around food, you're mostly going to make those choices with them, right? So if you're hanging out with people that are doing, that are unfortunately addicted to alcohol or drugs or something, that's who you're hanging out with. It doesn't mean, yeah, you might be strong and never go that path, but sometimes we have to change that circle of who we're around to be able to bounce forward, and to start, like you said, start a business that you're doing, a multi-million-dollar business, and to start impacting others. And I love that you walked us through that, like, rebuild yourself from, who you are from the inside out again is so, so important. But also the choice to make the change. It is a choice. And it's a hard choice. Would you agree, Kelsey? It's a very hard choice to make, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's also, I think that oftentimes we forget that we have a choice because we feel trapped in our situation. And it's easier to be a victim. It's harder to take ownership. And that's why I said earlier, I believe that ownership and accountability is like one of the most powerful things that you can do, and is sourced in your power. Because when you do that, when I said, I'm the problem and I need to change me, then I started thinking about ways to change me. Then I started thinking about solutions. If we don't look at ourselves and we don't say, I want to live differently, I want to run my business differently, I want to feel differently, I want to look differently, I want to do whatever it is, and I'm holding myself back from that being my reality, if everything is always dependent on other people and we're waiting for other people to change, nothing changes. We can only control us. I knew I can only control me. And so we forget that we do have the freedom of choice. And this is something that I talk about with clients all the time, because for my clients, these women are $1 million, multi-million dollar CEOs. They've checked every single box externally. They're making the money. They have these great businesses. They're making an impact. They have the accomplishments, the accolades, and their happiness is not there, right? And the structure of their business does not support fulfillment and happiness. And that's the issue. But they feel trapped. They feel like, well, I've built my business from a place of stress and overwhelm and overworking. And so I don't know how to change that. And obviously, I help facilitate that change, but recognizing that you can do it differently and recognizing that you're the one that built it that way means that you can also make a choice to build it differently. And so it applies in all areas, anywhere that if we don't like something, we have some sort of responsibility, accountability, or ownership in that situation that we can take back control over, and that we can make a change. We have choices always.
And that is so true. We definitely have choices always. And I could picture, when you're talking, describing your clients you work with, going, yeah, I can feel that. I can remember those days of like, I built it from here, and now it's like, and trying to find that harmony, because I never believe there's complete balance. I like, how can you find harmony, right? Because if you look at a scale, it's never completely. It's always a little bit off somewhere, right? Even if you think it's 100%. Like even when I measure stuff for the wall for pictures, I'm like, I know I was measuring that right. There's just a little off, right? And that's okay. And I love what you said, taking ownership of it too. I remember that for me. I remember, I was such a people pleaser that it was like I was lost of who the heck I was. That's why I said I figured out who Pearl was, because you asked me to do it, I would do it. I didn't understand that no was a sentence, right? And so I was like, I have to make a change for me, because I want to show up more 100% for my family. And when I started figuring it out, my kids were older. I mean, Matt was already a senior in high school. It's like, what the heck, where did I get lost? I got lost behind titles. I got lost behind wife. I got lost behind mom. I got lost behind PTA. I got lost behind volunteer, all these titles, but
Yep.
not who Pro was. And so when I finally said, I got to figure this out, because I'm stressed out, I'm tired, I'm tired doing for everybody and not feeling like I'm doing for me. Um, Once I decided to step into that, I actually took a course, Kelsey. It was a 6-week course. It was an identity and destiny course. At the end of 6 weeks, we had to give our I am statement. I still was saying I was a mom, a wife, and everything. And my friend's like, where's Pearl? I'm like, holy shoot. Yes, you're right. Where the heck
Yeah.
is she at? Right. So I decided to make that change. And I decided something as simple as taking a rock. And I took it was much smaller than this, but I took it and put it in my pocket and said 3 times a day, I have to move that pebble and say no to somebody. And it was a choice, as you said, to say that. And the interesting thing that happened for me, and you touched on this back a couple of times, and we've talked about it a few different times here, is the people I was with. Like I realized the people I was with was holding me back from moving forward. I also
Mm,
realized some of the people that I was hanging out with were not lined up with my ethics. And so why am I hanging up with these people? Because that's not who I am. Like I don't know, I don't believe in that. I don't think what you're saying is something that's, I want to be surrounded, right. And so
mm,
I had to do that. And then the other thing is how we talk to ourselves, right? That self-talk, right? Telling us in our head, I love coaching on mental fitness and telling us in our head how we're not worthy, and how you sage those thoughts. So take us now, you've come through this, you've walked through of who you are, you're on a journey of making the choice of changing things in your life. Tell us how that led you to what you're doing today.
yeah. Um, okay, so it's been really beautiful because it's been such a natural evolution in entrepreneurship. I think that one of the gifts that I realized that I had pretty early on was this ability to walk into a situation or have a conversation with someone and easily be able to figure out solutions. A lot of us women are fixers by nature. But to me, I've always been a fixer with a long-term approach. And so what this looked like is, I told you I fell in love with fitness. And what happened in that is that I got to experience firsthand feeling good. And after 10 years of feeling bad, I had no idea what that felt like. And so once you feel that, you're like, everyone needs to feel like this. This is amazing. I could take on the world feeling this way. And so it became this, I started by bringing friends to the gym with me, and I'm like, just come work out with me. Like, we'll do this together. And then that quickly led into, of course, me being a personal trainer. But what I realized in personal training is I had less control than I wanted. Yes, I could control my schedule and my available hours, but they were paying like $50. People were paying like $50 a session, and I was seeing 7 of that. And my mind is like, the math is not mathing for me here. Like, I'm doing the work, right? And so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna train people in my garage. And so we had some equipment in our garage because, we had worked out and built that. And so I started training people in my garage, and I didn't know what I was building. It was almost like this disconnected, like ignorance of entrepreneurship. I just knew I wanted to make people feel good. And so I started training people in my garage. I was competing in figure and powerlifting. I was like one of the first hybrid competitors in both sides, because usually it was one or the other. It was the physical or the strength, and I wanted to do both. And so I began to teach other women how to do the same. And so I built this really successful coaching company, like just piecing stuff together. And what I realized and building that was, when I was in fitness, very little of the work that I was doing and people's success was based on the food and the exercise. Everything was based on them becoming different women, them living their lives differently, them setting boundaries, them speaking up for themselves, them, it was like the shift in who they were. And the nutrition and the exercise was just what they did. And that's what I really fell in love with. And so, of course, then I was like, I feel like I need to do something like official here. And so this is before like everybody was a life coach, right? Because everybody's a life coach today. I like went and got a certification for it. And I was like, I'm already doing this, but maybe I should do this to make it legit. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But that's what I did. And so then I came to a place where I was like, I feel like I need to make another choice here. I had fallen out of love with prescribing people nutrition and workouts. And I was like, that's not the work that I believe I'm here to do, right? It's that knowing, that calling for more. And so I released my fitness business. I was like, this is time. I'm going to do this differently. And what I didn't realize, and what has been reflected back to me by some of my clients, is the way that I live and the way that I operate is very instructional, in that I don't realize that I'm teaching by just living my life. And so what had happened is, because I was sharing my life and all the deep and dark parts of it, Instagram became my personal diary. I had built this really big following of people. And a lot of those people were women who either were in entrepreneurship or wanted to be. And so then I started getting all these questions about, how did you build this? How did you create this freedom? Because one of the things that I loved about entrepreneurship is, when I had my first kid, I was like, I'm creating my schedule so that I can be a good mom, because I want to make an impact with my work. But I also, after having a mom who wasn't really present, wanted to be present with my kids. That was very important to me. And so, all of that being said, people started asking me business questions, and I just was telling people what I did. I didn't think anything of it. So then I was business coaching before everybody was a business coach, not knowing what I was doing, right? Just helping people and like telling them, well, here's how you do it, right? And so I realized, it's finally like reality hit me that, like, you have built something phenomenal. You've built financial freedom, you've built time freedom. You're actually a living example of work-life balance, or my version of that, because I believe balance looks different for everybody. Like you said, like there's no actual like 50-50 here. It's just how it looks to you. And so I just, I kept leading by example. I kept living, and I always had that fire in myself of like being ambitious and wanting to grow and wanting to make an impact. And so I naturally attracted these very almost like opposite women, who are high achievers, who are well educated, who have ran themselves into the ground and they've built something great, but they're tired, right? They're moms and they're trying to juggle it all. And so now I get to like take all of this life experience, take all of my business experience, and then I get to give that back to my clients now, who are these mom founders and these CEOs who are like, cool, I checked all the business boxes, but my relationships are strained. I don't feel good in my body. I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not present with my kids. And it's different because there's the life coaching kind of side of it, and people will get life coaches and can work through those things that I just listed. But for these women, where I'm different is that it's strategic, and that I'm actually looking at the business, the systems, the processes. We're optimizing the business in order for them to live the life that they want. So we're looking at, how do you continue to grow and scale your business and operate as this leader that you need to be without the self-sacrifice. And so it's just everything compounded, and it's been really, really beautiful.
I love how you walked us through that journey of how it evolved because, we do start, and we start in a certain area where we think, okay, we're focusing on here. And then something comes up and it's like a smack going, wait a minute, maybe you thought it was this, but it might really be a pivot like this. And it reminded me of kind of my story was sort of the same way. I was, I went on this weight loss journey and I was able to become a coach of the company that I did the program with. And, I was having a lot of people come that were on other people's schedule asking me to book on my calendar. And they're like, why does everybody want to be on your calendar? And I'm like, well, I don't know, and when I started
Because I'm
listening,
awesome, duh.
right. In my way, I'm awesome. But then I started listening, well, why am I so awesome and why I'm so different? Right. Because there's four of us that are in here in the office that are coaching, but they're all ending up on my calendars for some reason. And so I started listening because we were in a small office. So I started listening to how the others were coaching. And what I was hearing was you would come in and maybe you had a deviation that, I don't like the word cheat day because I can't stand I don't like that thought process, but
I'm
you
with
had a
you. Yeah.
deviation off the program, right? You did something that
Mhm.
wasn't part of the program. And so I was listening and I'm going, well, my gosh, I would not want to sit with you either because you're making me sound like I'm going to my mom and dad and I've gotten in trouble and I'm going to get the little talk and the finger pointing. I'm like, and I thought, well, so am I? And then I started going, am I doing that? And then I started listening and I thought, no, I'm not doing that. And then I asked somebody one time, like, why did you put yourself on my calendar? Like, what's so different about me? And they said, because when I come talk to you, you listen to me. You help me
Mm.
understand what was the emotional piece that led me to go make that choice. And I'm like, really? They're like, yeah. And then I started seeing that I had friends and even clients that were going, hey, Pro, will you talk to so and so? They don't need anything help with their weight, but you're such a great listener. I think they could use some advice for you. I'm like, okay, I don't do coffee. I'll go have tea with them. And I started sort of like you. I was like going, I'm not charging these people. I'm having conversation. I was like, all right, God, what are you telling me? Because like there's more here. And it really, that's what led me to my becoming more that life coach. And not even like, and really before, like you said, it's been like 10 years, really before like now there's so many out there, right? And so I started saying, okay, I need to shift this a little bit. And as I shifted it, I found the clients that I want to work with, like they really wanted to make a change. Like they weren't like one of the problems that I was challenged with the program was like, there was always this yo-yo, like this roller coaster they were doing with the program. Like, let's talk about the emotion. And the person I coached was, why are you doing that with them? Like, because I don't want them. Yeah, it'd be great to have them coming in here day after day, week after week, but isn't the goal to give them life sustaining success so they don't have to be coming back to and plus it's not healthy I'm like, I'm not a doctor, but I know it's not healthy to be doing that to your body. And so I just started on this journey and that's what it's led to me today. And so now what I do is when somebody comes in that's new to me and I know they've worked, because like you said, there's so many different coaches out there. I'm like, so why me? Like, why me? Why did it not work with that other person? And you said it, you're on Instagram. They're like, because I see you, like you're out there, you're sharing your true story. You're not sugarcoating it. You're not trying to make it sound like what you want us to hear. Like you're being honest. And I think that's so powerful to share that. Like we have to look at our lives honestly. And when there's signs that are in front of us, so for those that are listening, part of what I love, what I do is like this Shiro journey, right? Like saying no was the hardest thing in the world. And to say no to somebody else, because all that guilt and everything that comes into play, it plays in our head. Oh, they think I'm selfish. I think I don't like them. And when I started realizing I'm not saying no and worrying about them, how they're going to look at me, I started realizing I was saying yes, I was keeping doors closed for somebody else. So I might have come and helped you, with an event, but it's not an event I really wanted to do, but I was just showing up because I didn't want to tell you no. Then I could actually put somebody in that place that knew how to help you raise more money for that fundraiser, right? And so you raised a lot more money than I could have helped you do. And I started realizing the doors I was keeping closed for others, but also keeping closed for myself. And so, like you said, we start making that change. And I love that you help those that you work with say, yeah, you this is a great business you have going. You're very successful. And you still, at the end of the day, Kelsey, I know you would agree. At the end of the day, we're still with ourselves 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So come
Yeah.
tomorrow, if you're not here, that business you built and everything, unless somebody's going to take it over, the doors are going to shut. That job you have, somebody's going to slide somebody else in your seat. So how do you take what you've built, the success? And I love that you help them find that, what's their particular balance or harmony, like what fits for them, because it's not, like you said, it's not the same for everybody. There's no cookie cutter on this at all. Would you?
Mhm.
I think you agree with that.
No, I definitely agree. It has to be personalized and individually built. And that's why I think there's a lot of words that I will encourage clients to redefine, because we have our internal belief systems, right? So if we believe that success is the definition of success is all of these external accomplishments, then we continue to chase those things so that we can identify as being successful. If we change the definition of success and we alter that, so like my example would be myself and changing the definition of success to success is a feeling. Success is having deep relationships. Success is being fulfilled, remembering that I'm a pizza and there's lots of parts of our lives, and honoring my humanness, because behind all the titles we are humans. But yeah, I think redefining success, defining your version of balance, like what does that look like to you? The issue really becomes in goal setting as a whole is that oftentimes we think we know what we want, but it's impossible for us to actually say what we want because we haven't experienced it yet. And so any decisions that we've made, we're making based on past data, right? And so the best thing that you can do is first identify what you know you don't want, and then you can take opposites from that. But we default sometimes to setting goals based upon what we think we want because that's what other people have, and we think that we will be better or happier because we've seen somebody else. But especially with social media, we're not seeing the full picture. And I think that it's important for us to know that we have the choice to redefine things and to challenge our thoughts and to change our belief system, because we should evolve as people. We should believe different things, especially with as we experience different things. And so when I'm working with these women, how we really figure out what that looks like for them is we're first identifying the problems. What is not feeling good? What are the things that are contributing to you taking time away from your family, your stress, your overwhelm, your mental load? What are the things that are causing the problems? And then we start to figure out, okay, now we need solutions for those problems. The key is to create long-term solutions, not just band-aid approaches. A lot of coaches will give you band-aid approaches. There's a lot of coaches out there that claim to be strategic, but they're just giving you tactics. They're giving you something that you can throw at it. But people have to be done just throwing stuff at something, but that's because coaches are afraid to have the deeper level conversation. And I'm not talking about going into therapy zone, but I am talking about asking strategic questions to where you're looking in other areas that may be connected, right? So like my clients, one of their biggest problem is time. They're juggling too many things. They're constantly overwhelmed. They have teams that they're running. They have kids or multiple kids. They have partnerships. It's like there's a lot of stuff happening. And so time is the problem. If we just look at time, which is one of my favorite things to do, is creating the CEO schedule. I do it with every single client. If we just look at time and we look at how to master your time from a strategic standpoint, that's great. But if we don't look at how to master your mind at the same time, if we don't look at how when you sit down to honor this new beautiful schedule that you've laid out, how it's going to feel extremely uncomfortable, how you're going to be afraid of letting somebody down, how you're going to feel like this is, you don't need to take that lunch break. You need to take that meeting instead. All of those thoughts, if we don't learn how to challenge those thoughts, then the schedule doesn't matter. And so I think we have to, when I'm working with these women, we're looking at the strategic parts of the business, the structure of the business, the way, the actual tactical things that you have in place, down to like the SOPs, the systems, the processes, all the little nitty gritty parts, because our businesses are like, the kids' toys that are like the gears and you put them together and they all turn. Like that's how I think of a business, right? So we have, if one of our gears like is clunky and it's not fully connected with the other one, everything's not firing at full capacity. So we look at the business, but then we also have to look at the business owner. What is your contribution to the overwhelm? What are you, if we're having team issues and you feel like you're constantly firefighting or problem solving, what is your contribution to that? Are you not giving clear instruction? Do you not have, SOPs in place that are detailed for your team to execute properly? And so you're micromanaging them because you don't trust them to do it correctly because you haven't clarified what they're supposed to do. So really like being willing to go the extra mile and ask these sort of questions and to develop these long-term solutions, that's why my clients succeed. That's why they continue to, the money that they build is such a byproduct because they feel so much more confident in their leadership, in their homes and in their businesses, that it's just this beautiful blend. And so the balance that comes is it's a non-negotiable, right? So like when we're designing that CEO schedule, like my schedule is during my client or during my kids' work day, my kids' school day. Like when my kids get home at 3:30, I'm not working anymore. I'm with my kids. And so again, it comes back to the freedom of choice and like me giving them permission to do that. Like you no longer have to take meetings after 3 p.m. Like you don't have to do that. And sometimes we need that.
I that's so amazing because we don't think about it that way. We think, oh, I have to do all this, right? We think, oh, I have to take that meeting. I can't miss out on that. And my kids are I call it like Matthew's forever 25 and Nate's flown and grown. But it's like even when they were young adults, it's like I was like, okay, I have to get. There was so much. I used to do mortgages, and I would work crazy hours in Virginia. And I remember we came on vacation here to Florida with them for Disney, and I think they were in like first or they were like around second and third grade. And I remember having to take a call. Like by then I had an assistant. I recognized, hey, I'm doing so much volume. I need an assistant. So I called her my work. She was my work spiriter. And so she would take care of the things for me that, would, like you were saying, like, what can I delegate off that's going to allow me to shine where I want to shine. Right. And I remember being on vacation and Kathy calling me and is like, so-and-so just, she wants, insistent on talking to you. And I was like, I don't want to take the call. And she called me back. She's pro, I know your schedule. And I know. And she's like, can you take it? So I went outside. I remember I was at a Cracker Barrel, went outside and sat in a swing, and I was swinging just to kind of keep myself calm. And I basically told her, listen, you're going to talk to Kathy. I'm not answering your question. She has all the answers. I'm on vacation. So stop giving her a hard time and go do that. Right. And I remember, and my husband I came back in and he knew the agent really well. And I used to have to take calls from her at certain hours because of some behavior she had. And he's like, you did that. I'm like, he's like, I'm like, I'm done with people running my schedule. Right. I'm like, I need to run my schedule. And so it's so powerful when we can do that. And, and I like that you talked about, having the tactics in place because and you're right, because coaches don't want to delve into the deep stuff. They don't want to. I mean, I have a client who she has to make a choice in her life. And I'm like, I can't coach you anymore till you make the choice because until you make this choice, and it was some deep stuff without going into it. I'm like, I can't coach you to be happy this way or be happy that way. You're stuck, and I can't keep you coaching from a stuck place. So when you're ready, let me know. And she's still stuck in the same place. Like 4 years later, still stuck in the same place. And in fact, I do retreats. So I do a pajama retreat every September for women. And it's a self-care, self-development. We have speakers come in. You show up on Thursday evening. We do makeup removal. You are literally in PJs the entire weekend. We're on the beach. We go out on the beach in our PJs. We just have a great time, and we have some self-care time. And I remember my first retreat I did. It was a 2-day retreat, but it wasn't a spend the night. And everybody came both days with no makeup on. So they were coming from home over, so we weren't sleeping together. And there was this one person, and she was insisting on wearing makeup. And I was like, part of the requirement is to not come. But I was like, okay, she's coming. I'm going to let her come. Maybe she'll embrace this. To this day, still, she's 8 years later, she's still stuck in the same place. And it's, until we want to delve in and do the work, we don't. And I love what you said. Like, you really teach them that it's not a Band-Aid. It's like, how can you make these changes in our life instead of just slapping the band-aid on, because the band-aid's going to get ripped off, it's going to come off
Mhm.
again, it's going to hurt again. So how can you, like you said, master your time and challenge the thought of we have to do it all too, because we don't have to do it all. I like that you also talk about delegating and having to learn that. And sometimes, especially as women, we think we have to do everything ourselves. So this has been such great information that you've shared. And I'm so happy those that are listening. If you are that CEO mom, if you are that professional mom who works out of the house or the CEO mom that's running the household, I hope you got some really good nuggets today, especially around, it's your choice to make the change. I think that's a really powerful one. And then seeing yourself for the first time. I think when we can see ourselves for the first time, life becomes such a different choice for us. And you are an example, Kelsey, of that choice. And I'm so honored that you were on here with us today. And I'm so honored to have you share your story. And it's important to, and I say all the time here, and I say it when I'm coaching. I have a nonprofit I coach for women as well. They're in between homelessness. And I tell them we all have a story, and just write it down. And what are you leaving your mark behind when you're no longer here? Like, what's that mark? And I think seeing ourselves for the first time is definitely a mark you've shown us is important to do. And I'm honored you were here with us. I would love for you to share everybody like how they reach out to, where they can find you. And we'll put it in all the show notes. So if you're driving and you can't write it down, you'll be able to see it in the show notes when you go listen on the different platforms as well.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I enjoy just having these conversations and filling in. I really believe that like the natural evolution things is like we learn things and we grow and then we're supposed to teach them. So any way that I can be of service and use my lessons to help others, I always love. So yeah, the best place to find me is either on Instagram or LinkedIn. And if you want to kind of come in closer and learn more from me, if you go to kelseykoenreich.com/resources, there is a weekly video there in which I'm digging into all sorts of problems that business owners and moms are dealing with. And then I also have a weekly blog on my website as well. So really big on just like helping people get where they want to go. And I'm always open for questions and conversation because I just don't believe that any woman should feel stuck or trapped, especially when she's running her own business.
Yeah, we should not, nobody should feel stuck or trapped. I love that you remind us of that. And so Kelsey, real quick, give us one thing you enjoy doing for your self-care.
Oh, working out every single day. My morning routine is my lifeline. So I get up at 5 a.m. I drink my coffee, I journal, I read, and then we are very lucky to have a garage gym. And so then I'm out there. I'm still lifting. I run, I ride. We are a big Peloton family. So yeah, just like that 2 hours before my kids get up that's completely dedicated to my mental and physical wellness is the thing that keeps me anchored. It keeps my energy high. It keeps me healthy. It keeps me happy. I love it.
I love that. And thank you for reminding everybody listening, you can find time to do something for yourself around your schedule, around your kids, if you still have kids at home. It is possible. You just have to make the choice to do that. So I want to thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah.
for
And
sure.
the sacrifice that I make is I get up at 5 a.m., but I go to bed at 9 p.m. It's like a lot of moms, the thing that they want to do is collapse on the couch and watch 4 hours of Netflix. My kids are little, they go to bed at 7. And so yes, we definitely get our Netflix time, but we get in bed between 8:30 and 9 every night. So I can be up.
That's awesome. And having good sleep is so important too for self care. I love that you reminded me of
Yes.
that for sure. Okay. So I reminded Kelsey when we came on that we're going to do our better questions, better life cards. And I get no kickback, but I always like to tell everybody, the listeners, you can go to betterquestionsbetterlife.com, get your own 70 plus cards. These are great cards to do mental fitness over, do journaling over, just some things to think about. Like one card I'm reading right now is how do I want to be remembered, which is so funny because I talk about that all the time. What's the
Love
stamp
it.
you're leaving on life? So I'm going to shuffle these up. Let me shuffle them up so nobody thinks I pulled that card for you again, just in case. But Kelsey's going to tell me when to stop, and we're going to ask her to answer the question. So tell me when to start, Kelsey.
Stop.
All right. So her question is, what is my heart's desire? What's your heart's desire, Kelsey?
Mm. The first thing, like unfiltered, that comes to mind is to make the greatest impact possible. to help as many people as possible.
That make the greatest impact possible. And so if you're listening, you can also make the greatest impact possible by sharing your story, making a choice to make an impact on the world, as we've been talking about that today. And I just want to remind you that like and subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. If you are wanting more about how you can check out what we do as Sheroes in our community, just go to sheroleague.com. That's sheroleague.com. But at the end of the day, when you are coming into this world, you are a rough oyster on the outside. You have a lot of work to do. You have a lot of choices to make. But as you do that, you open up inside, you're going to find your inner pearl of greatness. And I hope you go out today after listening to Kelsea and you are inspired to find your inner pearl of greatness. Have a great day. Hi, my name is Pearl Sharenza, and I'm with Women Successful Living. And I want to tell you a little story. You see, once upon a time in the middle of COVID, I noticed that more and more women were overwhelmed. We were having to balance households. We're having to become teachers. We're having to work our job while we were trying to become a teacher. We were sitting in our home with our children and our spouses or our loved ones and feeling overwhelmed. We were lost for where we're going to find space in our own house. So I was feeling that this overwhelm was stressing women out more, that they felt like they could not have a Calgon take me away moment. They felt like everywhere they turned, somebody in the house would find them, or their job wanted them on another Zoom meeting. And I just felt so sorry for these women as I spoke with them and felt the pain because I too was feeling sorry. I was feeling sorry that I couldn't go out and do the things I love to do. I could go out, yes, and take a walk and sit on my front swing, but I couldn't go to the community meetings and the fundraiser functions or go have lunch with a friend or go to the movies with my husband or just take a moment away from everything that we're responsible for as moms and wives in our homes, right? You become that CEO mom and you're running a household. But then if you're working outside of the household, not only are you a CEO mom, and if you're asking what a CEO mom is, that's a mom who is running the household. Because let me tell you, you're not sitting around eating bonbons every day. You truly are running a business of the home. But then maybe you also work outside of the home. And here you are, you're trying to balance working in the home, working outside the home. And then maybe you have children and you're having to learn how to become a teacher because bless our teachers, they're trying to learn a whole new way of teaching through Zoom. And so as I spoke to the women in my community and my clients, I found they were also feeling all this overwhelm. They were becoming stressed. They were sitting in the home with all their children and their spouse, and they're going, I'm with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I love you, but I don't love you that much. Were you feeling that way too? So I found as they were feeling this way that I had to do something. And every day, about a month after into the pandemic, I decided to try something new. I decided to create a space where we could meet via Zoom. And yes, I know another Zoom meeting, really, Pearl, but I just knew that was the only way that we could get together. And the rule was you had to go in a room where you could put a note in the door and say, I'm on a break. I'm on a timeout. Whatever you want to call it, you could make that note on your door. Because really, we have to take time for ourselves in order to really take time and care for our family, our loved ones, and our job the way we know we want to and we need to. So what I did is I created what we called our self-care Sunday evening. And it actually became Sheroes is what we ended up naming it. Because we as women, we are the hero of the house. We're the hero of everything we do for our family, our friends, our job, whatever that is that you're responsible for, right? But are you really the hero for yourself? So that became important to me. So one day I decided I want to pour into these women. So I brought them together on a Zoom meeting. We met Sunday evening, 8 p.m. We finished up by 9 p.m. We just had conversations. What was challenging them? What was the pandemic bringing up for them? How were they doing mentally? Were they doing something to take care of themselves? And if you heard me before, I say bathtubs and taking baths are not self-care, but really during the pandemic, sometimes that's all you could do was get in a tub with bubbles and take a few minutes for yourself, right? So as we poured into them, I noticed that they were starting to enjoy the self-care. They were starting to be less stressed. They were starting to communicate better with their family and their loved ones because they communicate why they were taking time for themselves. They were able to communicate that it's not that I don't love being with you. It's that because I love you so much, I need time for myself. So on Sunday evenings, we worked on things about self-care challenges. We created a challenge of self-care where every day they had to do something. It could be something that took them 1 minute, or if they wanted to, it could be something that took them an hour. But it was their job to do something for themselves every single day. And then because of that, they saw that their family, they were worried that their family might make them feel guilty. So we started incorporating ways that they could do self-care for ourselves as we also did something with our family, right? So in some cases, we found that we had moms sitting and just watching TV, silly cartoons with their children. That's self-care, right? Or maybe playing a puzzle game or putting a puzzle together. And then when it came to their spouses, we found that they were sitting and finding movies on Netflix or playing cards, or even we gave them a challenge. We have a friend that has these great cards. They're called Better Questions, Better Life. We even would pull a card and have a discussion with our loved one around that card. And then as they were working from home, some of our professional women were finding that their jobs were having much more demand on them, but because they were home, they could actually kind of have more time they could grab for them. Oh, well, you're home all day long, so you really don't need to take a break. So they started finding that some of their jobs and their bosses were expecting them to give more. So we talked about how to set boundaries around our schedules. We talked about how to set boundaries around how much we want to be on Zoom. And as we did that, we found that the women were less stressed and they were actually performing their job performance better. They were having better and more improved relationships with their loved one, with their children. And some of them also had family that were in nursing homes. So we were creative on how to spend that time with their loved ones, but also making sure that they were taking care of themselves. So as we did this, I saw that it was a need that needed to continue. So even though the pandemic is, as we know it today, is over, I found that the women loved this so much, we needed to continue this. And who knew that 3 years ago when I started this, that it would grow into what we have today, this amazing community of women that we still meet every Sunday evening from 8 to 9 p.m. We talk about things that bring us joy. We talk about challenges we're having in our lives. We're talking about things we're having to overcome. We have some women that are struggling in their marriages. We're talking about how we pour into them and how to help them work through communication. We have amazing, amazing guest speakers that come in every month. We've had Jane Pilger come in and talk up to us about our mind and the neurological part of our mind when it comes to our eating and our health and sugar and how it affects our body. We've had Seth Santora come in and talk to us about the smile method and how we have things such as just the smile within us that can make things like mock acceptance, where we're accepting things because we think we have to accept them. Like, for instance, my loss of my son, Matthew. I never knew that when I created this group 3 years ago, almost now, how much I needed these women. And because I have this community of women around me, I met Seth, and Seth taught me about mock acceptance. And he taught me that, yes, I was accepting the loss of my son, but I wasn't truly believing that he was lost. And I was sort of like going through the motions. So ever since I have put this group together, this community of women, we have watched the women flourish. We have watched them have less stress. We've watched them communicate better with their loved ones. We've watched them put boundaries around their self-care so that they can achieve the things they want to, so that they can put their cape on first as they pour into their family even better. And ever since we've started this self-care Shiro group, it has grown where we now at our retreats, we have women joining us during our retreats. We meet every year. We have a retreat in September. It's a pajama retreat. You come in your PJs, no makeup. You have about 4 days at the beach, sometimes the mountains, depending on the year. You just have sessions and breakout groups on how do we improve on our self-care? How do we continue to communicate our needs to our loved ones? How do we find what our goals are and our visions are, and how do we bring those to fruition? Because how many of you ever sat back and said, I have this big goal and I really want to do it, but nobody believes I can do it. I want you to know that we believe in you and we know that you can do it. And so if this is something that you want to learn more about and come and enjoy a great way to end your week and begin your week, I would love for you to join us, because on top of our speakers, we also have an amazing meditation coach where she empowers us to sit down and just take some quiet time for ourselves and just be in our own space as we reflect on what we truly want within. And I am so honored to watch the progress and the growth that the women in this community have accomplished. And I cannot wait to see what's coming up for all of them and hopefully for you. And if this is something you would love to learn more about, I would love to invite you to come and visit us one Sunday evening. Like I said, it's a great way to end your week and a great way to start your week. What better to know that you've got a balcony of people sitting and waiting for you to join them, have a cup of tea maybe, and just do some laughing, maybe a little crying, but no matter what, know that you've got a girlfriend there to have your back. So if you're ready to check out the Shiro League, I would love for you to join us. All you have to do is email me at pearl@wsliving.com. That's pearl@wsliving.com, and I would love to connect you. I hope today you know that we've all come into this world. We're a little oyster. We might be a little rough on the outside, but on the inside, you have a pearl. And I hope you find your pearl to greatness today as you become the Shiro I know you are. My name is Pearl Sorenza. Do you know what your score is for your self-care? Find out today. Go to pearlssurvey.com. That's pearlssurvey.com and see what your score is today.